So you'd be able to memorize using images for 0 through 9, one digit for every place. That's not very efficient, is it? What I do is I memorize people for all of the digits, 00 through 99. That sounds pretty complicated, but it's actually not, because you already know like people you might be able to use for certain numbers. Maybe you know a friend that's 21 or something. But actually, I'm going to teach you, hopefully, a no, I don't. This is simple stuff. That what I'm going to show you here is a way to turn numbers into words, basically, using a system. What is it called? That's ironic, isn't it? I forgot what the system's called. No, it's called the major system. Basically, just bear with me for a second. I will ask questions to make sure you understand it. But every digit has certain consonant sounds associated with it. So one is t or duh. So duh, if you're turning that into a word, maybe da, that's a consonant, the D, so that would be one. Two, n, the N sound. Three, m. And you can look this up online too. I'm going to give you guys resources. You can, if you want to do your own investigations, I'll give you those at the end too. Four, r, like an R sound, so rare. There's two consonants in there. Rare, the first R and the second R. 4. So maybe you know a person that possesses a rare diamond on their finger. You could use them for 44 if you wanted to. But you want to make your associations when you are memorizing like all the digit pairs, if you choose to go that in depth with the system. You want to make sure that you choose people that kind of relate to you. Like I have a list of people I use, but they might not mean anything to you. So you're trying to associate. What better way than to use associations you already have? Because you already associate with different people. You have memories of people and so forth. 5. Oh. So like la, lol, lol. I don't know. 6. Sh. This is a different one. This one has a few sounds associated with it. Sh, ch, and j. Like a soft J sound, like j. Now there's obviously more digits here. 7. K or g. K, like a K sound. K or g, like a hard G. So we're going to use all of these properties of the sounds, that each digit makes to kind of turn strings of digits, if you want, into words that you can easily turn into images in your mind if you choose to go that far. Or maybe you stop with this and you can just remember a phrase. For example, my turtle poncho will, my love, pick up my new mover ginger. If you use this system, that's the first 26 digits of pi that you would remember there. Just remember that phrase alone. All right. 8. F or V, like a V. 9 is P or B. So P, pop, 99. Maybe your pop could be number 99. You could use that in your memory stage. Eventually, when you associate these numbers with people, it's just going to become second nature. So if someone was like 32, it's an astronaut for me. And 10. Wait, no, not 10. We're only going up to 0 here. S or Z. So to practice for a second, fog. What number would that be? F, because 8 is associated with the F sound. And you'll have to come to remember these things too, but if you want, it just makes it easier to turn numbers into words that you can visualize. This is the only reason I'm teaching this. It's just because if you do plan to create a list of people or objects that are, over 100, a list over 100 items long, you're going to want an easy way to turn these numbers into images instead of like, oh, what am I going to use for this? I'll forget You know, if 7 is axe, I just can't know what, well, it kind of looks like an axe, I guess. But, so fog, F and G, 7, fog, 87. You know, you see that? Or log, 5 is a little G, log, 57. See? It's quite simple. But this will make it a lot easier for you if you do choose to do that. Now, I fibbed a little bit. What I actually do is I memorize not only people for all digits 00 through 99, I also memorize an item that is associated with them too. So see what I do with this is, like, if I was going to remember the number 50, Lisa, L, 050, and Bart Simpson is 90, you know, but 0, 90. So 5090, I want to memorize that. What I do in my memory palace is sometimes what's called in like popular culture. Like if you guys watch Sherlock Holmes, it's a pretty good show that came out. He has a memory palace that he uses, and he just stores everything in there. And you can create massive memory palaces too. You could store pretty much anything you want to memorize. You could do this. But anyway, 5090. So Lisa Simpson, and then Bart Simpson. So I have the person first, and then I choose the object. So Bart Simpson's object is a skateboard. So Lisa Simpson riding a skateboard on the sofa. So you see how you can kind of like effortlessly turn one stage of your memory journey to hold 4 digits. So you can imagine if I have a 26-stage memory journey, then I could, 4 times 26 is how many digits I can memorize, about 80, I believe. So you see, just 26 spots I can pick up probably within, I can actually do it while I'm walking. I can just make a new journey whenever I want. Or I could remember old places I've been and create them on the fly. So pretty much your memory is only limited to however many places you remember in the world, and once you get more in tune with these abilities, these skills, you're going to effortlessly be able to do this stuff. So anyway, that's what I've done. Just in case you do want to develop an efficient system for memorizing numbers, I don't know if that would be useful for you in your life, but it is pretty useful if you want to get associated with these memory techniques. Just seeing how many digits you can remember in 5 minutes is a really good way to get practice with these techniques. You know, so you could just do 0 through 9. I would encourage you to at least do the list of like 100 people for like the digits. Actually, be more than 100, but 00 through to 99. 99 is a Bob, B-O-B. You know, the campground, that's my number 99. The guy at the campground, Bob, is my number. His object is a pipe, in case that probably doesn't mean anything to you. But, all right. So basically you're finding ways to encode information, and then you're using what scientists actually call spatial learning strategies to remember these visualizations, these associations that you have. And they've actually done studies and showed that these people, compared to average people under an fMRI, are using their brain differently to memorize information. So it's actually been shown, at least with Ron White, who appeared on Superhumans, that he was using 35% more of his brain than the host of the show Superhumans when he was trying to memorize a list of things. And I think it was 100 things, and it was just flashed, you know, flash on the screen in front of him while he's taking the test. And he memorized all of the items. The other guy memorized 7. The working memory itself can usually only hold about 7 items in memory, but with these techniques, you don't have to hold those items in memory because you've already memorized them when you associate them with like your memory journey here. So you don't actually have to hold all that information in your head. You're actually giving your brain a break, but at the same time you're exercising. It's a weird concept, but it works. Another thing, cards, playing cards. Now, obviously, you're not going to really find a good reason to memorize a deck of cards, except for the fact that it's a good bit of practice with these techniques. To start out with, you might turn every card into a person. Does the two of hearts remind you of anyone, just off the top of your head? Does it just strike you as, maybe, does it bring a name to mind at all? The two of hearts. Maybe someone that has two kids. Do you know anyone that has two kids, or no one? That's interesting. Oh, you do? Okay. So, okay, you could imagine that person is this card. And then, if you do go about, I would encourage creating a 52-stage memory journey around your house or something. It doesn't take that much effort, and it's a good exercise for your brain. You can memorize other stuff with it. I would go around, turn every one of these cards into a person, and put them in the places you chose in your memory journey. And just do that. And you'll find that you can memorize, once you memorize it forwards, it might take you 16 minutes. I've heard some people say at first. It only took me 7, I believe, the first time I did it. But to go through and do that. But when you keep practicing, these associations become stronger. You have quicker access to them. And it's just a good way to practice these memory techniques, a really good way. Plus, if you do plan on attending the U.S. National Memory Championship, that's one of the disciplines, is memorizing a deck of cards in under 5 minutes and hopefully recall every one of them accurately. So, like I said, actually, my fastest time for memorizing a deck of cards perfectly was 2 minutes and 46 seconds. I'm trying to break that. I haven't been really working with it, so I kind of got a little over 3 minutes now, but I'm trying to get that back down. I want to get under a minute. Yeah, a whole deck of cards. But you see how simple it is, though, right? You keep practicing going around. Now, one issue, though, is that if you want to do it right after the other journey, you just memorize the cards. What do you do about your memory journey? It already has other information stored in it. Well, that information, you can actually go through and delete stuff, but I like to allow it to fade away. So I have a few memory journeys that are 52 stages long. In fact, I have a lot of them now, by now, practicing this stuff for about 5 years now. You might want to just alternate some of those memory journeys. If you wanted to memorize maybe 5 a day, you'd have 5 memory journeys, and you just go through. You'd remember all 5 decks. Is that crazy? You can remember multiple decks of cards. I believe one of the records is over 100 decks of cards. Don't cite me on that. I actually don't remember. No, I'm just kidding. But there are some records that people are breaking. The first memory champion, the actual first official world memory champion, believed he had like ADHD or something. That was, he kind of lost attention very easily. He was wondering, in school they actually gave him failing grades and stuff, but now he can memorize deck cards under him, and he memorizes pretty much anything. I think one time he actually played Genius Trivial Pursuit, which is, a hard game as it is, but there's like 7,000 questions and answers. He memorized all of them. He was playing with somebody. He was or playing with a crowd of people. If anyone stumped him, he'd give them $50. No one was able to stump him that day. One guy actually said, "Move his briefcase away." Somehow it's the briefcase. He's cheating. Well, they moved the briefcase away. He could still do it, but so these techniques, they're pretty potent, and I believe they could probably change your life if you just give it a bit of practice. Let's see. Names and faces, that's a big one. Not big that it's hard to do, but big that, if you remember someone's name, you flatter them, for one thing. In a business endeavor, if you forget your boss's name the second day of work, you're an intern, I don't know how that would look on you. Probably you wouldn't fire you over it, but it'd be better if you did remember his name, So what happens when you normally memorize a name? Well, you hear it, it goes in your mind, drops to the floor of your memory. You're walking in Walmart, you see a familiar face, and you're like, I know that guy. What is his name? I just can't call it. And then later you're driving home, and then you're like, Aaron. Your brain just trolls you because it brings the information to you when it's not very convenient. So what I do, and this is something I learned from Ron White, which was the U.S. memory champion a few years back, I'll pick out a spot on somebody's face, a distinct spot that stands out to me. So you want to kind of be judgmental. If they have big ears, you're going to use that. All right? And then turn their name. Just like you might want to practice turning people's names just for a month before you start doing this into images really quickly. So Aaron could be arrows. Arrows. So now he has big ears. You can see a whole, like arrows just sticking through his ears. You see him in the store, and you're not going to forget that you saw arrows sticking through his ears. You're going to remember Aaron. That's his name. And it doesn't matter if this is like this just a social thing, or it could even be a, if you're a good business person, it could be like $1 million deal, possibly, but you forgot the person's name. You had a meeting with them the day before, you forgot their name. With these techniques, it's fairly unlikely you're going to forget their name. Another way to associate names and faces, you might remember, okay, your name's Alyssa, I have a friend named Alyssa, and you're a tennis player. I might see in my mind, visualizing, using your imagination, Alyssa and Alyssa playing tennis. So now I also remember her occupation too. So you kind of can just remember that. You'll probably remember it years later. 50 years later, you see her, and your face might have changed a little bit, but you're like, Alyssa, So don't send me on that either. I haven't lived 50 years yet. But yeah, these techniques are pretty powerful. And memorizing someone's name, something simple, and it really makes an impression if you can just memorize someone's name. And like I said, with the memory journey or the linking method, you could be memorizing a conversation you're having with a friend or something, or a potential friend, and you'll just have access to stuff they've said later. It's effortless, really. You're kind of going through, and it's kind of like autopilot for me. I practice these techniques so much, it's like second nature. And I'm just like storing information about what people say all the time, maybe what I ate or something. It's usually not that useful, but it's there if I needed it. And some of it's just a little bit of fun practice. So you see, it's a good skill to have. It's a life skill. So that almost concludes my lecture here. But I want to talk about memory journeys. One of the questions, I didn't ask you yet if you had questions. Did you have questions so far about anything? Because there's a little element of Q&A involved. But okay, so one question you might have later is, what do I do if I want to delete something in my memory palace? I want to clear memory palace out. I want to memorize something else. Or how do I use a memory palace to memorize things permanently? Because you're memorizing information, and you're like, okay, I want to memorize something else, but I have that other information in there. I don't want to get rid of that. So maybe you can have more than one memory palace. You could do that. Or I just use the same memory palace. Because if the information's different enough, like if you're memorizing a poem in numbers, the images are going to be a little different. You can kind of distinguish them. So you could actually, a few hours after you memorized a poem, which you can do using the link method, or maybe just the journey method. So you fill the journey with the poem, the keywords of a poem. When you're memorizing something like that, you don't have to memorize it word for word, because if you memorize the keywords and you understand what you were reading the first time, you're going to be able to bring back the entire paragraph in your mind as you read. You bring back the keywords. So you see, it's not when you're memorizing like something like that, you don't memorize every word, but that takes a bit of practice. How many keywords do you have to memorize? You have to memorize 2, 6, 5 per paragraph. Yeah, that'll come with experience. But you're memorizing the poem, and you want to memorize numbers now, or maybe this is an important list of names that you have to memorize. You can do both, and the images you bring up should be distinct enough where you'll be able to separate those. But if you want to put something into long-term memory, the key there that I explained before, one of the 5 fundamental parts of memory, developing good memory, is the review. You want to review the things you want to store in your long-term memory in your head. So you want to review them, maybe the poem you review the next day, then the next week. You don't want to memorize them, review every day, because that's just rote memorization. You know how you normally memorize stuff? You just repeat it over and over again to yourself. This isn't that. This is much more powerful than that. So you don't have to review it as much. So then maybe it's next week, and then maybe next month. And after that, it's probably going to be cemented into your memory. You probably don't even need the memory journey to pull that information out anymore. So it's going to be pretty stored in there for probably the rest of your life. You'll have access to that poem the rest of your life. And if you wanted to forget the list of names, you just don't review that for a while, and eventually it'll fade away. Like this is probably going to fade away in about 2 weeks if I don't review it. So you see it's in there pretty good already. But if I don't review it, it's still going to go through the stages where it kind of just fades away, disappears. But that's how, and if you want to create more memory journeys, like maybe you're having trouble finding places, I just want to point out like a few tips on that. Maybe you use friends' houses. You know, you've been over to friends' houses. You try to think of different places you've been. You could also use games. I use Skyrim. You know, there's a big map. You know, these like a 3D worlds almost, like in Halo. You know, you go drive around. You can actually use the maps. I'm sure you already have them memorized. You know, oh, there's the building over there. You could visualize it in your head as it is. Why not store information there? Why not make a journey that you can just use to store information? But a key thing is you want to use the same places that you've chosen every time. You want to go through them in the same order every time, and that way you don't have any confusion when you're trying to memorize something and trying to recall it later. Like, ooh, did I forget a place? No, you'll know because you're familiar with your memory journeys. So that's reusing. I was going to talk to you about like a massive memory palace, like the kind that Sherlock Holmes probably built. It might be a little advanced. I don't want to overwhelm you, you know, because part of this is that you can actually just understand the basics, which is the link method and the journey method. Try that a little bit, and maybe do some investigation on your own. There's so much information out there. So much information out there. I'm going to put a link to a website that I find particularly useful, where you can actually talk to people that are potentially winners of a world memory competition, like Ben Pridmore memorizing his cards, and like I don't want to make him angry by saying the wrong number, but I think it was below 25 seconds that he can memorize a deck of cards, and he actually did set the record for memorizing a deck of cards the fastest at one time. But there's different ways, there's different systems, and people develop different ones. Like, and Ben Pridmore, like I said before, with numbers, I would memorize a person and an object. I do the same thing with cards. Every card has a person and an object now, so that's how I make a unique image for 2 cards, you know. But Ben Pridmore, he did it the hard route. He kind of went through every single pair of cards and memorized a different image for those. So he has over like 2,000, I believe it's somewhere around 2,700 images for every pair of cards. Yeah, it works out for him though. I mean, he did win. He did have a world record set. But this is the form that you can go on. If you want to write this down, probably be the most important thing to write down. Because if I didn't explain it right, there's people on here that probably will be able to. .org. Mnemotechnics.org. And a book, a good book. I actually like the one, it might be a little outdated because you know, people are continually developing new ways to make encoding information more efficient. But there comes a point, like, is it really that efficient to be able to store 6 cards at one memory spot? Sometimes it might not be able to, so sometimes you have to hit a sweet spot, maybe 3 cards using a person action object system, which you can look up on your own. You can store 3 cards at each spot, and those are actually rated as pretty good systems. But the book is You Can Develop a Perfect Memory. A Perfect Memory by Dominic O'Brien. It's a troll D. O'Brien, so it's like a little apostrophe there. And he is the first official world memory champion. There's been several others since him. I think the guy that can memorize the numbers, the most numbers in 5 minutes, I think that's around like, it's over 500, I believe. 500 digits in 5 minutes. It's a lot. I think that might be over. But anyway, yeah, these people are the people you walk in there and you might think they're all savants, you know, with these memory gifts that they've had since birth. But you'd be surprised to find out that they will tell you, they'll try to convince you that they have a normal memory. They'll be like, no, I just have a normal memory. What they mean by that is their natural memory is normal, but the system, the techniques that they've developed that I've introduced you to, they're actually, it's been about an hour, they're actually developing those techniques and trying to get faster in the competition, getting an edge with whatever they can dream up with their new systems. But yeah, they're using memory techniques. And you could too. You all could be potential memory world memory champions. I mean, isn't that a delightful prospect a little bit? I mean, each and every one of you, I think, are capable of doing this, especially if you have good visualization skills. What do you do if you don't have those? Well, just practicing these techniques, you're going to get better at visualizing too, which you might find like you have more vivid dreams. When you're laying down before you go to bed, you might try to imagine what you did throughout the day, kind of visualize, go through your day, just before you go to bed, just the highlights of your day. And this helps you also kind of have a tendency to remember what's happened to you that day. I mean, you know how you just kind of forget what happened to you yesterday? It's like, oh, why would I forget something that happened to me yesterday? Well, maybe it's because you didn't kind of review what happened that day. You might also go back to an object that was in your past. Like I said, your memory works through association. So if you remember your teacher's blackboard, that might actually be associated with other memories you never even thought of before. It might just like pull up this memory you've forgotten for years, and then all of a sudden you're thinking of it because you just bothered to visualize the teacher's chalkboard and just see everywhere that the associations might take you in, you know, each memory. Maybe something else happened to you that day, you forgot about it. It could be valuable memories, it might be traumatic memories, you know, but it's always good to try this. So this is definitely a good book too. I think he does describe that in there about trying to go into your past a little bit. You might even pull out some places to use for memory palace. Like I might have used my high school, places around my high school. I could probably pick out 100 places there that I could use for 100 stage memory palace. You can use these techniques to memorize periodic table. You could use them to memorize the alphabet, which means you would remember, using the link method, you'd also automatically remember it backwards, so in case the cops ever, no, I'm just kidding with that. But you could memorize the presidents, you could memorize when they were born. It's really only limited by your imagination, and that improves as you go about these skills. It's all about practice, practice, and more practice, really. So, see, I think that's about it. So hopefully I left you with a few things you can look up. This is definitely a good forum to check out. They even talk about, you know, questions like about photographic memory, like they kind of do debunking and stuff. Like some people have autographical or autobiographical memories. They can remember every single thing that's happened to them. And they're like, well, how do those people do that? Well, actually, I personally think that they might be cheating a little bit. Some of those people they found, they actually keep detailed diaries for every day, and they would use rote memorization to memorize. So they go through, read over and over again, and they can just recall the highlights that happened to them each day, even what they ate, because they wrote that down too. Or they might be, some of them, the smarter one, they might not have known about these. They would use the memory techniques. I mean, I've used them, and I was just trying to experiment and see if I could remember things that happened to me. And I did it for a week, and I pretty much concluded that it would be possible to do it for however long I chose. I just kind of got bored with it. But like, let me pull up a day. September 16th, 2013, I remember I was out helping my grandpa prune the grape vines, you know. I actually remember that. I remember stuff like that. It's just all there. I even remember what I ate on some days. Like I think September 20th, yes, September 20th, 2013 was a Friday. That's the day that those Apple phones came out, those new Apple phones, and I had an omelet for breakfast. So you could do that with every single day of your life if you want to, and you could potentially have access to all of your memories. That's up to you if you find that valuable, but I'm just letting you know it's possible. So that concludes it. Thanks for the opportunity.
I think we have it, Brad. Okay. There's Brad.
I didn't.